both used civil disobedience. I should say civil non-cooperation. King and Gandhi were very much against violence. Okay? They tried to win over their opponents. I mean, think about this. You guys remember from 10th grade. Did King win over a lot of supporters when he carried out the march from Selma to Montgomery? Yeah. He did. How many people did he and his supporters beat up along the way? None. Were they under threat themselves? Yes. Did they stand up to those threats? No. Well, yeah, I mean, they did. They weren't going to back down. And ultimately, did the vast majority of, like, non-African American people in this country agree that King was right on these goals that he wanted as far as voting rights and so forth? Yeah. Yeah. But it's a fascinating thing. I mean, Gandhi right here, okay, and the other leaders, write this down, it's the Congress Party. That's the name of his political organization, and their main number one goal is independence for India. Got that? Independence for India, that's the main goal of Gandhi and others. And they ultimately will get it, although it's complicated. None of this stuff is really super easy. One of his top people that he worked very closely with is, I've got the name written down as like Jawaharlal Nehru. Okay? His nickname is like Pandit. Yes, that's good. Pandit Nehru. He will be actually the first prime minister of India. You can write that down, Nehru. And he's got a jacket that's really cool, becomes a fashion hit in the 1950s. Called the Nehru jacket. Ooh. Nehru will become a political leader, first prime minister of India. Gandhi actually doesn't hold political office. He's like, I don't need to hold political office. Kind of like King that way. I don't need to be elected to anything. I have my goals and objectives. And actually, sadly, Gandhi, soon after India became independent, he was assassinated by somebody who didn't like the way he did it. He was assassinated by a radical Hindu nationalist.
No, but how did he die?
He was shot. Yes, bullets. Assassinated, yes. Yeah, he got shot. I know. Yes, there's all kinds of things. Yep. So it was gun. Yeah, I mean, Gandhi was like doing his prayers and so forth. He was walking toward his prayer. The guy walked right up, pretended like he was like a religious person and so forth. Pulled out a gun, shot him right dead. Yeah, very sad. So, but here's something interesting. The guy who shot him actually didn't like the fact that, here's the deal, write this down. Gandhi and Nehru, both Hindus. All right, so they're both Hindus. But it's interesting because they're Hindus that believe India should be for all the people that live there. In fact, Gandhi in particular, Gandhi was raised and he got his education in Britain in part, and he was like not going to be like shoving Hinduism down people's throats. Right? So, I mean, some of his best friends were non-Hindus, Muslims and Christians, and there's even some, anybody know, there's a religion in the area around, right up here, actually look at this one too, in the Punjab, there's quite a few people who follow a religion which has kind of got a mixture of Hinduism and Islam in it. That's the area. It's a religion called Sikh, S-I-K-H. And if you look at the belief systems of the folks that follow the Sikh religion, it's got some Hinduism component and it's got some Islamic components. S-I-K-H, Sikh. S-I-K-H. So here's the big problem, though, and you can see, here's the geography. The leaders of the Indian independence movement, Gandhi and Nehru and another one who I'll introduce you to, are looking at the map. And they're looking geographically at some challenges. Because Britain is saying, look, if we give you control of it, the Muslims are not going to be happy. Because they're in the minority of India altogether. You can write that down. If you added up all the people that lived in that Indian-controlled British area, the Muslims would be in the minority. Although, as the map shows you, in certain parts of that territory, the Muslims are in the majority. In the westernmost part, and also here in the region called Bengal. They're in the majority. That's how it kind of shook out. And also, somewhat here in the Muslim-dominated areas, but certainly in some of the Hindu areas, there's a large number of religious minority. Okay? And the British are like, you need us to keep you from fighting with each other. And Gandhi and Nehru's response was, Britain, just go. We'll get it solved. So did they do that? Did they solve it so that there was the creation of one large Indian state? They broke it apart. In 1947, write this down, in 1947, the people wanting independence couldn't quite agree on one big independent country. The leader of the Muslims, you see his name there? Muhammad Ali Jinnah. When you see somebody's name has got Muhammad and Ali, you pretty much know he is a Muslim. And he was the leader of Muslim Indians. And he basically was arguing for and got his way. What did he argue for? An independent Pakistan. And what is an independent Pakistan going to look like? He said, we want to not be in the minority in India. We want Muslims to be the majority in certain parts. And so those areas of India that are Muslim majority will be Pakistan. Well, guess what? That's two different areas. Let's look back on the map. Over here and over there. So Pakistan, write this down. When Pakistan was created, 1947, there's East Pakistan and West Pakistan. Got that? West Pakistan had a lot of people, probably a little bit more prosperous compared to East Pakistan. West Pakistan is over here. If you go further north to the northwest, you end up in Afghanistan. If you go further west, you end up in Iran. Okay, just see if we can context. So where's East Pakistan? Not so economically prosperous area known as Bengal. I'll give you a clue. There you go. I'll have this on the map. Okay, that was actually pretty helpful. Is there still West Pakistan and East Pakistan today? No, one of the wars, and we'll get into the details of it as we go along, but one of the wars, I want to say the war in 1971, one of those broke free and became independent from the other. East Pakistan gained its independence from West Pakistan, and it became known as Bangladesh. We'll get into the details of how that occurred. So if you're wondering, like, West and East Pakistan, so what we know of today as Pakistan is the western part. Okay? So how did the first war break out? The first war broke out in large part because of Kashmir. All right, let's look at that. Let me see, a couple things about Kashmir. It's one of the princely states. There's a prince in charge. That's interesting. Oh, here's another fact. It's mostly Muslim. Write that down. Kashmir, in the furthest north, prince, not the singer, and mostly Muslim. In fact, here's the guy's name, Hari Singh. He is the ruler of Kashmir, at that time known as Jammu and Kashmir. And so Britain's like, well, I don't know, what are you going to do? Are you going to be part of Pakistan? Or are you going to be part of India? You're going to have to go one way or another. No more of this princely state thing. Which one are you going to do? Well, it might have made sense for him to go to which country because most of his people were that religion? Pakistan. It might have made sense for him to do that. But guess what he did? He went India. Right? And if you look at it, right, Muslim is the grain. Most of the area was dominated by Muslims. You actually have some Buddhists in some of the hinterlands. Most of the Hindu concentration was way down here in the southern part. There was a decision. He says, I'm going to be part of India. My territory will be part of India. And the Muslims in Kashmir were like, that's not very good. And they got support from the Pakistani government. And they had a big, big fight. And we're going to get into the details of the fight because it's like, oh, it's just a little bit of land and so forth. What are we talking about? Hundreds of thousands, close to 1 million even, dead as a result of that first war. And most of it people just killing each other, not militaries killing each other, but just people killing each other. That's where we're going to pick up next time, sadly. And we'll give you a little bit of a primer as well on your IAs. Okay? All right, questions?